Okay. Are we going to bump it back and forth like we usually do live?
No, because I've listened to all this, so I know what needs to happen. Oh, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll do it as if we're actually talking.
Okay, so is it no, or yeah?
Yes,
What?
like the lines that have T, you read that. Then the line that has E, I'll read that. And then the line that has T, then you do that.
I like that.
Yeah, it's almost like we have a system.
Okay. All right, I'll start.
Hey everyone, it's Elliot.
And Todd. Welcome to Two Designers Walk Into a Bar, an ongoing conversation about pop culture and iconic design.
Today we're going to take a step back in time and into a bar from the past as we rub elbows with the beats.
We may be in Greenwich Village. We could be in North Beach. Wherever our bar is for you, it's home to the hippest cats and the coolest kittens.
So ask the bartender for some reasonably priced Chianti, wave the cigarette smoke away from your face,
and dig the crazy scene right alongside us here in the bar. So, all right, welcome back, everybody. We are continuing our series about the beats, and we've been digging in deeply into a couple things that Elliot and I really love: jazz, albums, and illustration. And Elliot's brought a couple really cool illustrators to the bar, even some I'm not very familiar with, and I'm so glad I dug into them. And I bet you brought another person today.
I did. I absolutely did. So let's jump in and let's learn a little bit about, drum roll, and we'll see, Todd, if this is someone you've heard of.
All right.
Jim Flora. Do you know who Jim Flora was?
I have heard of Jim Flora.
I figured you might. He seems like somebody who, I don't know, like you guys would have similar auras or something. Like it seems like you guys would really align.
Yeah, and now, don't roll your eyes at this, but one of the reasons I really like Jim Flora is because his work reminds me of Mary Blair's from her Disney time with, like, It's a Small World and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Why would I roll my eyes at that?
Well, because I thought you might roll your eyes that I was kind of digging on It's a Small World.
Oh, there are so many other things that you're interested in I've rolled my eyes about. I mean, that would be so far down the list.
All right, but anyway, okay, so that was a distraction to go there about. We'll have to do another episode about Mary Blair. But you talk about Jim Flora. So definitely cool artist of that period, right?
Yeah, definitely. So he's probably best known. So if people have ever seen his work, I would say they probably ran across it first for the cover art he did for RCA Victor and Columbia Records in the 40s and the 50s. So, again, there's this music tie-in.
Okay, yeah, all right.
But like we've said before with David Stone Martin and really all these folks from this era, they were doing other things as well. They weren't just illustrating jazz album art or record album art in general. And his style... he was very sort of distinctive, very sort of, I don't know, idiosyncratic. So we'll get into talking about who he is and his style in just a moment. But just to give a little bit more of a background on this guy, beyond just what he did in terms of his records, he was also a commercial illustrator from the 40s to the 70s. And get this, you might not know this. I didn't know this. He was the author and illustrator of 17 popular children's books.
I didn't know
17. Isn't that crazy? Oh. That's wild.
Yeah.
And then he was also a fine artist. So again, a lot of these guys did commercial work. They did fine art. And the two things often influence one another naturally. So he created hundreds of paintings and drawings and etchings, sketches. I mean, he lived to be 84, so he definitely had time to pump out a bunch of work.
Yeah.
where did he come from? What is he all about? In 1942, he'd been out of art school for a few years. He was hired for $55 a week by Columbia Records. And this seems to be the going rate, right?
That's good money.
Well, if you think about, remember Reed Miles and how he got paid roughly that same amount for each cover he did for Blue Note? And Blue Note was a heck of a lot smaller than Columbia. I mean,
yeah, right.
Okay. He was not the lead dog here. Like, this was sort of entry-level work. So he was in the art department, but his boss was a guy named Alex Steinweiss. And do you know why that name is important?
Other than being a mucky-muck at Columbia Records, no.
Okay. So everybody who has ever held a record, CD, cassette, whatever, is indebted to this guy, because he is the one who actually invented the illustrated album cover. He was the first one to say, hey, this shouldn't just basically be a grocery bag. There should be something on this that tells the buyer what it is. So that was his claim to fame. That was Steinweiss's claim to fame. So he was directing Flora, and Flora was, for this $55 a week, he was illustrating ads, he was illustrating new release bulletins and retail and trade literature, basically all the utilitarian things that supported the operations of a record label, right? All the sales materials and things like that, and the basic advertising. So in Columbia, stayed there for, roughly 10 years, and then Flora leaves in the early 50s in 1951, and he decides that he's going to have a freelance commercial art career. Mm-hmm. And it takes off. I mean, looking at his work, it's obvious why, right? So again, just like David Stone Martin, he had all of these amazing household brand name clients. So he was illustrating covers and articles for magazines like Fortune, Life, Look, Newsweek, New York Times Magazine, Mademoiselle, Sports Illustrated.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he was no slouch. Yeah. Very enviable roster of clients for sure. He also, while he was doing this, he took an art direction job in another magazine called Park East. So this was in New York. And he published the first commercial illustrations by an illustrator named R.O. Bleckman, who went on to do all sorts of different things.
No kidding.
Yeah. But wait, there's more, Todd. This is You Love a Thread.
You're tying it together.
There was also a young scamp whose spot illustrations got in the magazine, a guy named Andy something.
Warhola?
Something
Andrew
like that.
Warhola.
Some guy from
really?
Pittsburgh, yes. So he was one of the first persons to give him a chance. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. Like, that guy connects R.O. Bleckman and Andy Warhol. This is like the 6 degrees of pop culture right here.
It really is. It really is. Going back to Columbia. Okay. So he leaves at the end of 1952 from the Park East magazine stint, and he gets replaced as art director by Robert M. Jones. And what was great about this is the same guy who had replaced him as the art director at Columbia Records. So apparently...
Oh, no kidding. He was just following him around.
Yeah, it's like a hermit crab or something. Well, this shell, I've outgrown this shell, but if you want to move in, have at it. So why is Jones important? Like, why am I bringing him up? So he then becomes, in March of 53... He wasn't there that long at this magazine. He becomes the art director at RCA Victor Records. And he begins jobbing out album cover assignments, right? Because he has this work he needs to get done.
Park East must have been a sucky magazine.
Yeah, well, yeah. No one wanted to, I guess you're paying your dues or whatever. Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hey, look, Warhol, though, they did something good. See, stop bagging on Park East magazine, man. So he starts jobbing out some of this album cover art to his buddy Flora, right? So like, one hand washes the other. But this then results in a golden age of Flora LP covers, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the albums I'm going to be talking about in a minute was developed during this era, and that is Mambo for Cats. So stick a pin in that. We're going to get back to that in a moment, okay? Inside, Sauter Finnegan, Lord Buckley's hipsters, flipsters, and finger-popping daddies. We'll talk more about Lord Buckley. He was kind of this humorist and sort of beatnik, not beat, but beatnik icon. I want to make that distinction very clear. So Lord Buckley's hipsters, flipsters, and finger-popping daddies, knock me your lobes. And Shorty Rogers courts the count. So I love this stuff so much. And his style is so perfect for this content, this subject matter. And then he also did spot illustration jobs for Columbia as a freelancer. And he did some more album covers during 52 and 53. He also, though, Todd, again, we love a thread. We love to tie things back together.
Yeah.
Okay. He also in the 50s had assignments for commercial storyboards for the animation studio United Productions of America.
Oh, you know what? I was going to say, and I didn't know this, but I was going to say, his work looks like UPA's. Like, there must be, like, somebody around that time. That is so cool. He was doing boards for UPA at the same time.
Yeah, and these, just for folks who don't know who UPA is, if you've ever heard of characters like Mr. Magoo, that was UPA. And then, as I mentioned earlier, he developed these children's books, and so he's just been really, really, really prolific. So let's talk about his style for a minute, and then we'll get into the album art specifically that I really like, Mambo for Cats.
Speaking of cats, how about we wet our whiskers with another round from the bar before we jump in?
Ooh, that sounds good. I'm inspired. So, hey, how about a White Russian for this cool cat?
Okay, White Russian. Oh, I get it. Yeah, okay. Cream, right? Okay, sure. All right, you got me distracted there with the White Russian, but I guess I'm buying again. So we'll be back in a minute. Hi. We want to take a moment to mention that if you're enjoying this episode, we have an archive of topics ranging from the Olympics to movie posters.
Think Ghostbusters.
Iconic images.
Think Bigfoot.
Punk music.
The Ramones.
Saturday morning cartoons.
The Pink Panther.
And failed products like OK Soda. Visit our website at twodesignerswalkintoabar.com for full episode notes and visuals, the latest blog content, and to sign up for our newsletter.
Follow us on social media. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Find the links on our website or search using the phrase "Two Designers Walk Into a Bar."
Most importantly, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people like you find podcasts like this.
And tell a friend about us. Send them a link to our podcast from your listening platform of choice.
And if you're inclined, buy our merchandise. Stickers, coasters, magnets, t-shirts. We're designers. We make good stuff, and it helps support the show.
Get in touch. Use the contact form on our website or send an email to hello@twodesignerswalkintoabar.com.
We read every message we get. Honest.
And we're available for speaking gigs. Email us to learn more.
Okay, now, back to the bar.
Flora, he had this sort of cartoonish style. And it really, one phrase I read, and I really, really love this, describing his work, it said he had a diabolic humor and uninhibited sense of outrageousness. I thought that was great. I want that on my tombstone. I think that's good. That's incredible.
He was a finger popping daddy too, wasn't he?
He was, man.
He knocks me on my lobes.
He does. Lend him your lobes. Much of he was not a crow quill. For the record, he did not, partake, shall we say, in the Crow Quill pen, as far as I know. I mean, he did some
right.
pen and ink sketches and things like this. He did smaller temperas. And it was always these clusters of sort of unrelated images interlocking, sort of look like, I don't know, sort of runes or something, like these little sketches.
Hieroglyphics.
And this brickwork, and everything's kind of cluttered together, bizarre figures, disturbing, nonsensical, but like you're always intrigued, you're always looking, and you're seeing something else every time you look at it. And this was not a guy who, if you recall when we were talking about Reed Miles and talking about some of the Blue Note work, white space, right?
Right. Not a fan of white space, was
Yeah,
it?
not at all. Quite the opposite. He actually said, direct quote, "I could never stand a static space." So, like, he always wanted it activated with something, not just, I would say, occupied by something, but activated. So, music was one of Flora's big muses. Obviously, he's working at a record label. He's doing these album art designs. So he was very into music. I mean, this totally makes sense. And some of these montages sort of represent improvisation, right?
Yeah.
You sort of have this one-man band jamming on a canvas. And he actually has a biography written about him, and it was by a fellow named Erwin Chusett. And he said that Flora, quote, crafted rhythmic design in unfathomable meters. And that just reminds me a little bit of what we talked about if you think about Dave Brubeck and you think about this oddball timing in jazz. And I love the fact that unpredictability, that sonic unpredictability, can be translated visually. I think that's really interesting.
And it sounds so much like UPA animation too. The way you described it, it's like this rhythmic design, these sort of blasts of things happening, and like just weird meters and sound to accentuate the animation and the shapes and the colors.
And what was great is he's somebody who over time his style changed. So if you think about what he was doing early with some of these crammed and cluttered pieces of art in the 40s, that doesn't really bode well for a children's book, right? So we're talking about how he was working on these children's books, but kids need something that's a little bit more distilled down and simple. So from the 40s, when he was getting started, to the 70s, when he was starting to delve into some of these books with this more broad appeal, he sort of calmed things down a bit. It got a little bit less edgy. So the more popular he became, essentially, the less quote-unquote threatening his art became, right? So he definitely sort of tamed the beast a little bit in terms of some of his more irreverent or outrageous tendencies, I think.
Right.
Even though he did these cuddly, sort of kitty-lit illustrations, these family-friendly things, his art still had a bizarre edge to it. But it was, playful, it was comic. It was also at times sort of erotic, or it was macabre.
Yeah.
On occasion, I guess, it could sort of even shock and offend people when they were looking at the details. And the only thing I can think of here, I guess the modern comparison I would make, is it's sort of like his tentacle porn or something, right? Like it's his way to like put something out into the world that was outrageous when he was doing this sort of middle America commercial work in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
We really need to talk about who his work influenced. Now we'll get into Mambo for Cats. So a couple folks that I know you and I both love, who are directly, I think no pun intended, or I guess pun intended, we can draw direct lines between Jim Flora and these guys. One is Pixar's Pete Docter, right? Does his look and feel of what he does. And then the other one is someone you and I know have talked about in the past and we both love, is J. Otto Seaborn.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And, he also did children's books.
Yeah. There's two more that just popped in my head that the names came up on some of our bar snacks talking with our friend Lenny Terenzi. There's a guy named Derek Yaniger that is the natural lineage of Flora.
Absolutely. And we'll put links to all of these folks, and we'll put links to this work on our episode page too. But before we go any further, Todd, I think we need to talk a little bit about Mambo for cats.
I've been waiting for that.
I've listened to this album. It's from 1955, and I'm not sure if this was actually meant to be listened to by cats. I mean, maybe cats in terms of cool cats, but I don't know. I played it for my actual cats, and they were not overly impressed. They didn't
really do anything.
It didn't turn into the Aristocats. You know, they didn't just hop on their hind legs and start dancing and doing all this stuff. So I was a little disappointed that maybe some of the magic over the years had not been retained by this album.
That is clearly how you should judge all music then, if they don't turn into the Aristocats.
But I want to talk about Mambo for Cats because I love this. There's, again, no white space on this sucker. And it almost feels like a block print, right? It almost feels like it's like a 3-color screen print or block print or something like that. And just like David Stone Martin's work, the Bird and Diz work, this also, all the lettering on it is hand lettered. There's, again, some very sort of fine print that's truly typeset, but Mambo is upper, lower, even 4, which is probably should be all lowercase if you're going to get anal about your typography. But then cats is all uppercase. And it's great because the 3 colors, it's sort of a, I don't know, what would you say, like a sort of
like a turquoise?
Yeah, kind of like a deep, turquoise, and then sort of a terracotta, red, orange, and then black.
It looks African to me.
It does. Yeah. And I think part of that is the illustration style. You have these 3 cats, and 2 are playing drums. 1 cat is only playing a single drum, and he's sort of sitting there playing, and he's on the left. Then you have 1 cat playing 3 drums, so he's obviously ambidextrous and very talented. And then you have a cat lying on its back playing, I don't know, what would you think that is, a clarinet or a horn of some sort?
A bong.
Oh, that's what that is. Well, that starts to make a lot more sense then to me.
And they all have these mustaches.
Yes,
too,
instead of whiskers, they all have these mustaches. And again, it's sort of this same flat art, kind of cubist, sort of Picasso-ish rendering. The faces, especially the cat playing the 3 different drums, it almost is more human to me than it is cat-like. And the cats all have a combination of stripes and spots, and they don't even really have paws. They sort of have these almost claw-like hooves or something.
Yeah.
So it almost feels a little bit devilish or something like that.
Jim Flora was just not being bound by any rules of physics on this one.
No, but I think it works. Like, if you saw this, if you're in a record store and this was on display, would you not want to tear it open and go over to a turntable and listen to it?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just incredible. I would love to have this as a giant poster and just hang it in my office or something.
I happen to see right now that you can order that as a giant poster, as a matter of fact.
Are you buying it for me?
Haven't I bought you enough, really? But yeah, I guess I should.
Yeah, but usually the things you buy me, I just end up drinking.
It's actually, I say that it might be it's a limited edition, so they may not have any more. But I tell you, let me look into it, Elliot. Let me look into it.
So basically, what you're saying is you got my hopes up, and now you've just dashed them on the rocks.
That's exactly it.
Ooh, wait! I just said on the rocks.
Oh, I like what you did with that. That reminds me, we probably should take a break.
Yeah, one more episode left as we start to talk about the origins of We've talked about the beats, but we really haven't talked about beatniks. And that's really what everybody, I think, is thinking in the back of their minds. It's like, okay, guys, this is great and all, but like, when do the beatniks make the scene? where have they been this whole time? And
where's Maynard
when
G.
can I wear
Krebs?
when can I wear my sunglasses and my beret and
play my bongos?
Yeah, and what's this all about? So as we wrap up our tour through time, we can't leave the beatniks behind, and we will talk about them as we wrap up our era on the beats.
All right. See everybody next time right here around the bar.
Same beat time, same beat channel.